The wind swept hard over Whisper Creek Ranch that evening, kicking up red dust across the open prairie as the sun melted behind the ridge of dying light. Inside the worn wooden house, where silence had become a second skin, rancher Elias Boone sat in his creaking chair, staring at a faded photograph framed in cracked glass. A photo of a woman with gentle eyes and a laugh you could almost hear through the picture. Mary Boone, his wife, gone 9 years now. Or at least that's what everyone believed. The townsfolk said her wagon had tipped during a storm while crossing Miller's River, her body never found. For years, Elias clung to hope, searching the banks, paying drifters for news, and praying into the night. But as time turned dust to years, hope hardened into sorrow, and sorrow into the quiet rhythm of a man who learned to live with ghosts. The ranch had become his world, fences, cattle, sky, and silence. But that all changed the evening 2 small figures appeared on the horizon. At first, Elias thought it was a trick of light. The heat shimmered on the road, bending shapes into ghosts. But as they drew nearer, he saw 2 girls, no older than 7, clutching each other's hands, their faces streaked with travel dust, their clothes torn and tired. He stepped off the porch, his boots crunching on gravel, hand resting on the revolver holstered at his side out of old habit. "You girls lost?" he called, his voice deep and raspy from years of solitude. The taller one raised her chin, brave despite trembling lips. "Are you Mr. Boone?" Elias nodded slowly, suspicion flickering behind his eyes. "Who's asking?" The smaller girl stepped forward, holding out a folded piece of paper that looked too heavy for her small hands. "Our mama said to find you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "She said, 'You're our daddy.'" Elias froze. The world around him seemed to stop, the wind, the creaking gate, even his heartbeat. The name Daddy hit him like thunder over an open field. He swallowed hard, eyes darting between the 2 girls. They were twins, same chestnut hair as Mary, same freckles that used to dance across her nose when she laughed. His voice cracked. "What did you just say?" The taller one spoke again, steady this time. "Mama said you'd take care of us if anything happened to her. She said to give you this." The paper trembled as he took it, hands shaking. It was an old envelope, stained and creased, his name written in Mary's handwriting, the one he thought he'd never see again. He tore it open with trembling fingers, the smell of old paper and faint lavender rising like a memory. The letter inside began simply, "Elias, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't come home. But I never left you because I wanted to—" The words blurred as his eyes filled. She told him of an accident, a rescue, and a secret, how she had survived that fateful night but was taken in by travelers who saved her life, how she had been too injured to return, too afraid he'd already moved on, and how, in her years of wandering, she had found work on a distant ranch, raising the twin girls born months after the accident, his daughters. The letter ended with a plea, "If I don't make it back, please take care of them. Tell them I loved them every day." Elias stumbled back onto the porch, sitting hard on the steps. The girls watched him, scared and unsure. The older one's eyes, so much like Mary's, filled with tears. "Are you mad at us, mister?" Elias shook his head slowly, his voice low and broken. "Mad? No, sweetheart. Just trying to breathe again." He reached out, one calloused hand trembling as he touched the girl's cheek. The little one flinched at first, then leaned into his touch like it was something she'd been missing forever. "What's your names?" he asked softly. "I'm Clara," said the older one, "and this is June." He nodded, the names anchoring him to a new reality. "Clara and June Boone," he murmured, tasting the words. "Lord, help me, I got daughters." Inside, the house suddenly felt alive again. He led them in, lighting the old kerosene lamp. The flame flickered across the walls, over the family photo, the mantel, the empty chair that had always been Mary's. The girls stared at it with quiet reverence, as if sensing the spirit that lingered there. "You hungry?" Elias asked, forcing a smile. "We ain't ate since yesterday," Clara admitted. "We walked a long way." He moved quickly, frying up beans and cornbread, setting the plates like a man preparing for company after years alone. The girls ate slow, polite, though hunger burned in their eyes. After dinner, Elias tucked them into the old guest room, the one he'd never used since Mary's passing. As he stood in the doorway watching them drift to sleep, he felt something strange stir inside him. Hope, but also dread. If the girls were real, if Mary's letter was true, then why wasn't she with them? Where was she now? The rancher's instincts, once dulled by grief, began to spark again. Someone had sent these girls across miles of dust and danger. Someone had wanted them found, or hidden, and he intended to find out who. That night, under the pale moon of Whisper Creek, Elias Boone sat by the fire, turning the letter over in his hands. The handwriting was real, the scent was real, the twins were real, and somewhere out there, so was the woman he thought he had buried in his heart forever. As the firelight danced on his weathered face, Elias made a silent vow to protect those girls with everything he had, and to find the truth about what really happened to Mary, because now, after 9 years of silence, the past had come riding back to his doorstep, calling him Daddy. The dawn crept over Whisper Creek Ranch in a wash of pale gold, pushing back the chill of night, but Elias Boone woke long before the sun touched the hills. He had spent the night turning that letter over and over, trying to make sense of a miracle wrapped in mystery. His daughters, Clara and June, slept soundly in the next room, their small breaths steady as the ticking clock on the mantel. He hadn't heard that sound, the breathing of family, in almost a decade. It filled the old ranch house with a kind of peace that hurt to feel. But beneath that peace ran questions sharp as barbed wire. If Mary had survived, why hadn't she come home? And what had finally driven her daughters to his doorstep alone? Elias stepped outside, the boards of the porch creaking beneath his boots, and watched the sky bleed from grey to fire. The ranch stretched out wide and lonely, fences sagging, cattle grazing in the far field. It had been his prison and his penance for 9 years. Now it was his daughter's home, and perhaps the key to unlocking a past that refused to stay buried. Later that morning he saddled his horse, Dusty, and rode into town to see Sheriff Lane, an old friend and the only man who had stood by him after Mary's disappearance. When Elias told him the story, the sheriff's brow furrowed deep. "Twin girls?" he repeated. "And a letter from Mary? Boone, are you sure this isn't some kind of setup?" Elias pulled the letter from his coat, laying it on the desk like evidence in a trial. The sheriff read it twice, then leaned back with a sigh. "Well, I'll be damned," he muttered. "This is her hand. I remember it. But if she wrote this, then that means she's been alive all along." Elias's jaw clenched. Alive and hiding. But why? The sheriff scratched his beard. "You said the girls came from the South Road. That leads through Black Hollow, near the old mines. Not a place for kids to be wandering. Somebody sent 'em. Might be somebody still following." The thought tightened Elias's gut. He thanked the sheriff, mounted Dusty, and rode hard back home, dust billowing behind him like a storm. When he arrived, Clara was sweeping the porch, her small frame steady and determined, while June sat by the corral feeding scraps to a stray pup that had wandered in. For a moment he just watched them, his daughters, fitting into the world he thought had ended long ago. "Daddy!" June's voice broke through his thoughts as she waved, grinning, the puppy yipping beside her. He smiled, a rare, unguarded thing. "You girls doing all right?" Clara nodded. "Yes, sir. We cleaned the dishes and fed the chickens." Elias chuckled softly. "Well, I'll be. Don't think this ranch ever looked so cared for." But his smile faded when he saw movement on the far ridge, a rider dark against the horizon, watching the ranch. Elias's instincts flared. He didn't move, didn't let on, just turned to the girls and said gently, "You two go inside for a spell." Once they were safe indoors, he watched the rider turn and disappear beyond the ridge. He didn't like it, not one bit. That night he sat by the fire again, the letter on the table beside him. He stared at the handwriting until the lines blurred into tears he refused to shed. The girls were asleep in the room across the hall, their laughter still echoing faintly through the house. But as he reached for the letter again, he noticed something he hadn't before, faint writing on the back corner, almost invisible. He held it close to the lamplight and read, If you ever need to find me, look for the light beyond the hollow." His heart hammered. Black Hollow, the same place the sheriff mentioned. And the light, what did that mean? A campfire? A signal? He didn't sleep that night. At dawn, he packed his rifle, saddled Dusty, and told the girls he'd be back before dark. "Promise?" Clara asked, her eyes wide with worry. He knelt down, touching her cheek. "Cross my heart, darling. You take care of your sister till I get back." He rode out as the sun rose over the hills, the world painted gold and blood red. The trail to Black Hollow was rough and narrow, twisting through canyons and dry creek beds. As he rode deeper, the air grew still, the silence heavy with memory. This was where Mary's wagon had vanished 9 years ago. And now he was back, chasing ghosts. Around midday he found the hollow, a deep scar in the earth shadowed by cliffs and brambles. He dismounted, leading Dusty on foot, and soon saw something that froze him in place, the charred remains of an old wagon, half buried in weeds. His heart thundered. Could it be hers? He stepped closer, and there, beneath the soot and dust, he found it, a small silver locket, engraved with an M. His knees nearly gave out. "Mary," he whispered. The wind whispered back, dry and cold. Suddenly, movement caught his eye, a flicker of light deeper in the ravine. He followed it, rifle ready, until he reached a small cave. Inside, faint candlelight glowed. A woman's voice spoke softly from the shadows. "I knew you'd come, Elias." He froze, every part of him trembling. "Mary?" The figure stepped into the light, her face older, worn by years and sorrow, but her eyes, those same kind eyes, left no doubt. "It's me," she whispered, tears glistening. "I wanted to come home, Elias. God knows I did. But I couldn't." He dropped the rifle, stumbling toward her. "Couldn't? You let me bury you in my heart for 9 years. You let me believe you were dead." She shook her head, sobbing. "I was dying that night, Elias. The river took the wagon, and I hit my head. A man found me, Jeb Caro, a trader passing through. He saved my life, but when I woke, I couldn't remember who I was or where home was. It took years for the memories to come back. By then, it was too late." He stared, trying to take it in. "Too late?" Her hands trembled. "Jeb wasn't just a trader. He ran with dangerous men, smugglers, outlaws. When he realized who I was, he wouldn't let me leave, said I was worth money to someone. I escaped with the girls when they were 6. We hid, moved from place to place. But he found us again. I sent the girls to you when I knew he was close. I didn't want him finding them." Elias's blood went cold. "You're saying he's coming here?" She nodded. "He won't stop till he does." Before Elias could speak, a gunshot echoed through the canyon, ricocheting off the rocks. He pulled Mary down behind cover as dust rained from the cave ceiling. "He's here," she whispered. Elias's eyes hardened. Then he picked the wrong ranch to come after. As the sun sank and shadows stretched across Black Hollow, Elias Boone, a man who'd lost everything, found himself fighting for it all again. He raised his rifle, the weight of 9 years of pain and love in his hands. The man who had stolen his wife's years was coming, and Elias would meet him head-on. Behind him, Mary's trembling hand touched his shoulder. "Be careful," she whispered. He looked back once, eyes fierce and full of fire. "I lost you once, Mary. I ain't doing it again." The gunfire that followed rolled like thunder through the hollow, the past and present colliding in the smoke and dust. When the silence finally returned, the sun had vanished completely, leaving only the faint glow of a campfire, the light beyond the hollow Mary had written of. And when Elias rode home, hours later, battered but alive, Mary by his side, the girls came running across the yard, their cries of "Mama" and "Daddy" echoing into the night. The family that fate had torn apart was whole again, scarred, yes, but whole. And as the stars spread wide across the prairie, Elias looked toward heaven and whispered, "Thank you."